Well, Cheryl, you're here.
I am.
Do you know why I'm saying that?
I have an inkling.
Because every time I go walking through the mall or I run into somebody, they're like, oh, what happened to Cheryl McKenzie? And they think you've left, but you haven't left. Mm-hmm. You're promoted. So everybody, Cheryl's here.
Yeah, I get that occasionally too, where you say, oh, you know, I miss you reading the news on APTN National News. But yeah, I got promoted. You know, with Naomi Clark leaving, I never in a million years I think Naomi would leave. So I just never pictured myself in the job of executive producer for news. I didn't really think that far, you know. I thought, you know, I'm a career journalist. I was going to stay on the air, keep doing what I'm doing, keep getting better at what I was doing. And then when the opportunity came up, I just thought, how can I not go for it and have a role to have that longer view of what we're trying to do and what we should be doing with APTN National News and the current affairs programs.
And so what had changed? Like, what was it like for you to go off air and to, I mean, people should know you're producing the news, you oversee the news, you oversee face-to-face, you oversee In Focus is a big job. And you also are looking after the two reporters that are here in Winnipeg as well. So now you're behind the scenes doing all this stuff. How's the change been?
It was, at first, you know, it took a lot of getting used to, you know, not being the one to, you know, come up with the question lines and to be doing my own research. You know, it's really a lot about coordinating other people to do the job. So coordinating the teams for In Focus, coordinating the teams, the really small team for face-to-face, getting people together every morning for the national news and putting out that national outlook and in collaboration with our colleagues from all across APTN National News. And it felt a little bit liberating also. I guess I'll be honest about that, where, you know, I felt like, you know, I didn't have to like think about, you know, like, oh, Cheryl McKenzie on the news, and, you know, like how I was going to say something or how I was going to look when I was saying it. You know, it was really more going back to my analytical side and using more of my coordinating skills with bringing teams together. And so I still think there's lots more that I could be doing, and just getting into that, looking over like the whole year of what we're doing on the news and trying to just get myself in that mental space where we can be like really as prepared as we can be to do the jobs that we're doing.
Fantastic. I mean, I know we're supposed to be talking about Investigates, and we'll get to Investigates, but you've been such a part of APTN for so long. I did want to talk a little bit about your career and where your career's gone. You were on the investigative team, but let's go way back to like before you were even a journalist. This was not, journalism was a second career for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was by trade. I'm a chef, and I still consider myself a moonlighting chef at Cheryl's Roadhouse Grill, which is which is barbecuing in my garage, or taking it on the road, because I like to cook, you know, for my relatives, my cousins, you know, if I'm coming over, you know, I'm bringing meat and I'm going to be barbecuing. I just love cooking, and so I did that as my vocation in high school. I went on to secondary school as a chef, and then plans changed, you know, when you start having, I had my son, mm-hmm. and just thought, you know, the life of a chef, you know, where you're working evenings and weekends and holidays.
Which is so different from a journalist. But go on, go on.
But well, like in the kitchen, in the kitchen, working those hours in the kitchen, I just thought, you know, this is not going to work as a single mom trying to do that. And so I thought, I have to do something else. So I went back to university. I got a degree, ended up working in human resources for a year, mm-hmm. A couple of years actually, and then I got an internship at ABC Radio. Our public broadcasters radio, and you know that was great, you know, because the internship It really changed the course of my life, because in that time when I was working at the Centre for Aboriginal Human Resource Development in Winnipeg here, the APTN News was starting up.
That's right.
And so I'm seeing these job ads for writer-researcher, which is a reporter here for the news. And I'm thinking, wow, this looks really super interesting. I kind of wish I could do that. But I thought, you know, that it's just never going to come to be. Even once, just for my own satisfaction, I took that job posting and threw it behind me, and I went for coffee downstairs.
What, like salt or something?
Yeah, because I was just kind of disappointed that I thought, you know, like, I'll never be able to do that kind of thing.
And why would you think that? Why would you think you would never be able to do that?
Yeah, that is, when I think back on it now, I thought, you know, like, why? But I was really thinking about, you know, like, I have a job, you know, I have to make money, where are really the jobs going to be? And I didn't think, you know, that it would be a viable career to jump ship and try and get a job at APTN as a journalist.
Honestly, let's face it, because I was just the year before you coming on to APTN, and I think we're all a little nervous about it. And things were a little crazy in the newsroom back in those days.
It was a little bit of a unpredictable situation, including with APTN. There wasn't, you know, we went through a couple different leaders with APTN. With APTN News, you know, we had a really strong leader that started with us, Dan David, you know, we all know and love. And I really got a lot out of working with Dan and helping to shape what our real responsibility is to our jobs and to what we're doing here at APTN. And it's like super important what we're doing every day. You know, it might seem a little mundane at times where you see, you know, a story about that's not really the hard-hitting news every single day, you know, kind of thing. But you have to have that kind of mix.
Some days there's stuff that doesn't happen, and then other days it's just like a melody of human rights abuses going down the lineup, and it's incredible.
Yeah, and then looking, you know, I'm digressing a little bit from your first point here, but like just over the years and seeing these same stories come up, these same injustices come up, these same concerns come up, and you know, we kind of say, you know, well, if we pulled that story from 5 years ago, it wouldn't be that much different than what we're reporting on the same kind of issue today. And that's a real problem for all of Canada. And I know there's different levels of the way people are trying to deal with that, or trying to shove it under the rug, or trying to reframe it. But that's why it's so important for us to be here. You know, we talked about back in the old days of APTN News, you know, like, was that motto of ours, you know? History would have been different if our reporters were there. Yeah. Well, now we're here. And
I always think we should revisit that. If our reporters had been there, history would be a different story. It should be our reporters are there, the future is different, right? We've got to find some way to work that out.
Yeah, and is that really happening?
Is that really happening?
Mm-hmm. We're there to ask the questions, which wasn't always there, for sure. And that's another reason why APTN News came into being in the first place, why so many people fought so hard for APTN to even exist, is because Indigenous voices were not being heard, or they're being framed in a way that we wouldn't describe ourselves, or changing the whole way people look at a problem. Because if you say, this is happening because of this reason, and if you asked all different people that same question, they would have different reasons for why that's happening. So we provide that perspective that I feel that would not be out there if APTN didn't exist, and didn't encourage that in other media that's happening more and more today.
You know, and I think that's a great segue into a conversation I wanted to have with you about what I thought watching your career was like a breakout story for you. And that would have been, I was trying to find the date on it, I think it was 2003, so you hadn't been here that long. And along comes Raven the Thunder Sky. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that story and what happened?
Yeah, Raven contacted me She had been talking to a number of other media outlets also. Her concern was about the insulation in her home growing up in Poplar River. And it was vermiculite insulation, you know, those old bags, you know, it kind of looks like cat litter, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
It looks like little chips or, yeah.
Yeah, just little chips and little grains, and they mine it. They actually mine it in the ground and use it for an insulation. You know, people would like dump it inside their walls and pile it up on their walls, or else line it across their usually across in their attic, so it becomes like insulation in the ceiling. Mm-hmm. But Raven, her two sisters died at a young age, mesothelioma. And so Raven started looking into the causes of mesothelioma, and there are not a lot of direct causes for that particular kind of cancer that
and it's
attacks.
rare enough, right? So for a whole family to have a cluster like that.
Yeah, yes, right. And at first it was just her two sisters, and they died, so she started looking into it. And eventually she did find out that there was a strain of vermiculite that was contaminated with asbestos. So the asbestos in Libby, Montana, there's a mine there where they got the vermiculite. There was a strain of asbestos in that vermiculite, and it was still being exported around the world. In Canada, Raven eventually found a letter from Manitoba, or I should just not say Manitoba, Alberta health officer indicating that there could be problems with that particular kind of vermiculite. So that was going on like since the 50s, 60s, 70s, but it was still being put in people's homes. And so she pressed Indian Affairs to provide that list of building materials, and you know, they kept telling her, so she was telling me when we first started talking, they kept telling her, you know, you have to go to the archives in Ottawa, we don't have it. So we started reporting on her story and getting some answers and asking more questions. And what do you know? All of a sudden there's a press conference with Health Canada saying, oh, we have the list, and in Indian Affairs, oh, we have the list of those building materials, and it was that vermiculite, and it was that particular strain from Libby, Montana. And sorry to say it, but she eventually lost, like, pretty much all her immediate family, and even her own life now.
Yeah, she's passed on. And I mean, certainly, she was a fighter. She was pushing for this, and deserves all the credit in the world, along with her partner, who was very supportive. But I don't think, if you believed her, you did that story when no other reporter would do it. And that was, I think, a breakthrough for you. I think it was a breakthrough for what APTN could do to give a voice to someone who no one was listening to. There were results out of it. You don't often see results out of stories, but they found houses that were standing that could be remediated now, where people had been living with this in. And, you know, this whole chain of events might have saved lives. I mean, that's really incredible. And for APTN, that was the first story we ever had that was nominated for a mainstream award. It was nominated for a Gemini. And so it resonated for the first time with other media that APTN were real journalists. So that was big. Why do you think that story resonated with the mainstream?
A part of it was because of that cancer cluster that even other researchers, you know, the Mayo Clinic started getting interested in it, and that particular cancer cluster of a family that lived in that one house all came down with mesothelioma, which eventually took their lives. There was also Canadians, that product also went into lots of regular Canadians' homes across Canada. They all banded together and filed a class action lawsuit and eventually got money from the damages. But, you know, Raven Thundersky and her family, what did they get? They didn't get, you know, they're not part of that class. They weren't part of that class action. They didn't, you know, they tried to sue, you know, but what can you get when you're suing the Canadian government over your house that was built on the reserve? So why other reporters clued in on it is because it affected other Canadians and not just Indigenous people.
Well, and then like I said, like to me, that was a breakthrough moment in for APTN and for your career. But what have you done that you're proud of?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I stumped her.
Yeah.
I stumped the interviewer.
Yeah, I know. I think I got my greatest satisfaction out of In Focus, hosting In Focus, because it's a live show. We can work and we can pick our topics. We can search for our guests. I can write that script and frame the issue the way that I see it playing out, and get that checked over, and that's live TV. So even if I didn't want to stick to the script, I didn't have to. I had that editorial freedom that I was trusted with, and I didn't take that lightly. And that's the only reason why I could have done like a live shows, because people trusted me with that responsibility. Because if anybody tunes into APTN, like that's what they're seeing right there. What's APTN? Well, it's like that 2 seconds of what's on the TV there. So I definitely didn't take it lightly, but I did get my greatest satisfaction out of live TV, because like it's such a rush, and there's
I've got to
a
say,
million things that could happen.
There's some mornings where something might be breaking, and I would come in and say, "Well, can we go live?" And you would just get this big grin on your face, like you were happy. I think other people want to throw things at me, but you were always the one happy face in the room where it's like, "Can we go live?"
Yeah, it's a real challenge, and you have to really be up on where things are at and be able to explain to the viewer, like bring them up to date too on the developments that have been going on with that particular issue. And if you make a mistake, you have to talk your way out of it, or you have to just admit you made a mistake right there. So
but that's never happened to you.
I can't think of one. It probably has, but I can't think of one when I'm sitting here. But just that exhilarating rush of live TV is just like, it's so much fun.
Well, we probably should move on and talk a bit about Investigates, 10th anniversary. You were there for part of it, because you've done a little bit of everything at APTN. You've done In Focus, you've done Contact, you had your own daytime news show for a while, and for a while you were in Investigates and actually filed the very first story ever out of Investigates. So this one's called The Haircut. Tell me a bit about it.
That story, it came up in out of Thunder Bay, which at the time was not as well known as it is today, for things going on with young people dying in that city, the way the police are even being investigated, about how they investigate things. So at that time, that wasn't really a big thing yet. So looking back, I find that really interesting. But with the haircut story, it was a 7-year-old boy. He's at school, and the teacher's aide decides to, he has long hair, he's a powwow dancer. His teacher decides to just cut his hair off, or just cut all his bangs off here. And the mother came home. The mother, when she told me, her son came home and he was just devastated that she cut his hair. And so the mother asked the teacher's aide, like, "Why'd you cut my son's hair?" And she says the teacher's aide told her that, well, he couldn't see. So I decided just to cut his hair. And so the mother wanted to go ahead with pressing assault charges. She wanted assault charges pressed on that teacher's aide. She went to the Thunder Bay Police and made a complaint. Thunder Bay Police says that they did a full investigation, even though they didn't talk to that teacher's aide for about a month. And they looked at it and said, there's no real reason to file any charges for assault. We don't see it as assault. We've consulted with the Crown's office here, and it's not grounds for assault.
Do you know, was there ever even like an apology? Because I don't think it's mentioned in your story. I don't know if there was any follow-up afterwards.
No, the family moved their kids to a different school. and that's really as far as it went.
I want to ask you one thing, because you didn't reveal the family, and you sort of shot them without showing who they were and kept their identity. You said because of the age of the child. What was the ethical question in your mind about showing their identity?
Well, at first, when we learned of this story, the mother, very reluctant to go on camera because of the fallback that she would get. People who would know her in the community, maybe people who agreed with the teacher and not their point of view. She was just worried about what was going to happen. She was worried about any kind of violence towards her kids or her family, or what's going to happen with her house. She was worried about what was going to happen if she went public with that story. So we agreed that we would conceal her identity and her child's identity, just to try and protect them from how people are going to react if it gets really negative and really violent. We didn't want that for those young kids.
So 10 years of Investigates, and how long have you been with APTN?
It's going to be 18 years. Wow. Coming up in June. Yeah, so just over 17 years already.
What do you got? What do you hope for the next year? She unveils her plot to take over the world.
I don't know. I've just always been about, I have to get better at what I'm doing now, and I think I can be doing a lot better. And I'm strategizing in my own mind what I need to do to get to the next level of what I'm doing, and that's really been what I've been about, I think, in my career at APTN. I just want to get better at what I'm doing now.
Okay, well, thanks for talking to me.
Thanks for talking to me. I know, that's why I was laughing. I was laughing twice there, because I thought, oh, yeah, see, told you, we would do that.